Hello. Currently have South Sudan pulled up here on Zoom Earth. We have some areas of concern, of dire concern when it comes to a country's ability to repel fire, cities from surrounding areas, rural areas. And what we're seeing in South Sudan is pretty grim, reaching a pretty big milestone when it comes to these fires along its countryside that I do not think anybody has the capacity to battle these blazes. Also because the country is marred by internal civil armed conflict, which we won't be getting into much. But until I see statements that firefighting is failing because of probably the military helps out with the larger scale fires with heavier equipment, plus it's areas that are remote. It could be dangerous. I can't imagine there being, these fires are just all over the countryside. Nowhere in particular, it just seems to be the three main areas of concern, but there are millions of people displaced, running from this war, this combat, this civil war between rapid support forces and South Sudan's own military. As a result, we see in other countries as well that the military will help out in larger scale fires. So if the military is the target, they're not fighting fires. And if people are being evacuated on foot, there's not going to be any first responders left. So you see these fires start building up over the past 2 weeks or so, but never really looked at the entirety of the countryside. Just by this alone, you can see these brown patchy marks. Those are all fires. These are still active or very recent. And we can see them from this high up. These fires are really impressive. And they're being allowed to exist for far too long. You have massive ambient heating that's going to be as a result of this. And lots of pollution, air pollution, ground pollution, because you have a lot of ash and soot and other things that burn, they get in the air and they come back down. As this though this is looking pretty maddening. Like, what are they fighting for if the entire country burns? Will they have anything left? I don't think we'll be able to see anything from this distance, this resolution. But there are many, 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 many fires all around South Sudan. My border's at? Yeah, there we go. Don't know where that was turned off. Let's see. Wow, Malakal, or Juba, these areas in particular. But this is what we're going to be using to look at these fires. Time span, we can see a little bit more of the country. Back one day. Okay, I think that's good. My mic a little closer to myself. looking at, like, I gotta have a system or something, because just seeing the amount of fire, I mean, I know I can get lost and turned around. I don't want to backtrack. I don't want to have to accidentally go full circle and be like, hey, this fire looks familiar, this pattern, this shape. Because we're seeing massive blazes that are being largely unchecked, largely left to burn. And that's not by choice. There is a civil internal armed conflict between rapid support forces and South Sudan's own military. Everybody that's a civilian in between, even if they are a first responder, their lives are in danger. There'd be no firefighting. Make this a little bit bigger. I don't know why that's so small. I might. Yeah, a little touch better. So I'll start far west, South Sudan, because you're not going to believe how much of this country is on fire right now. I cover other fires where smoke and flame transits the border to another country, like these fires are doing in Central African Republic. If those fires get fought back on their end, they're not going to cross the border to fight fires on the other side of South Sudan. It could be too dangerous. So, not seeing a lot of activity when it comes to that. These fires are absolutely raging. I mean, there are fires in places that haven't. Oh, maybe that's a little too fast. Let me change that up. Start to see that fire grow. Spreads across fast. Now we're going to look at fires, but I'm not going to try to stay a lot of time on any particular fire unless it's an inferno, because we have so much to cover. We'll also be looking at these areas that are blackened by fire that are still patchy, that might have had a fire in the last few days, couple of days that went by, or that started up and died back down. Probably not going to see it a lot. You're going to see a lot of fire that just keeps burning like that. And even if this fire looks stretched out, ran out of fuel, ran its course, could be still smoldering. You have a lot of wind that picks up embers that causes it to burn another area. If these areas aren't being taken care of, they're going to lose a lot of their wild. And in Africa, you don't want to lose hectares of wild every day. It's massive. No, we're just in the very western area, southwestern area. And there's no way that anybody's fighting these fires. This is very grim. There's a lot of wild that they could lose that will just be massive biodiversity loss in just a few short weeks. And any kind of ecology like that won't recover. Fire is a natural part of this world. But when you add shelling as a fire being a consequence of shelling, that burns hot and that metal burns hot. And that sits there cooking. I'm not saying all these fires are the result of shelling, and yes, we can see if a fire, if we can get close enough to it, if we can see its blast zone, if it was from a shell, which it's an entire war zone. People are running around everywhere, displaced after war broke out between the Rapid Support Forces and the South Sudan military. Like, I'll say that's not what we're going to talk about here, but what we're looking at here, it's the military would help put out these large-scale fires. Instead, they're being targeted. These fires can't be put down. There's too many and they're too large. If they were going to be put down, they would have done it. You like water bombs from a helicopter or plane. You're not going to see those in an active war zone. He's shot down. A lot of plant loss, fauna, floral, animal diversity, biodiversity. It's besides it being, it's like, okay, hey, here's your country, please take care of it. Don't burn it to the ground. Nope. I mean, we're not letting it burn it to the ground, we're just causing war to erupt. That is ungodly amount of fires. These fires are just starting up too. By New Year's, these things could erupt and become a pretty significant problem, largely. And I mean that as in they start crossing or borders into other countries. Who then would you tell in South Sudan that, hey, take care of your fires? You can't. There's nothing here. There's who are you going to talk to? South Sudan military or the Rapid Support Forces? Why? Are they going to respond? They're in armed conflict. No contact with them to, hey, these fires are getting out of control. Is oof. The ground is so lush and vibrant, beautiful. A lot of smoke chokes out the area. I mean, yeah, rag up there, but go back. 19th. See if we can get a day without clouds. Nope. Back to the 24th. That's good enough. This is from 10 kilometers. You see the scale of it up here to the left side of the top side and the date to the top right as these slides move forward. The scale of these fires is immense. Absolutely immense. Think that there's not going to be a larger fire that's a result of all these fires combining. That probably has already happened, we just haven't seen it yet. Now I'm trying to stay at the southern border, because right here, like these, the fire that crosses over into Central Africa Republic. The AR. These fires are really moving fast, legitimately. They're spreading faster than people would be able to respond to them if fighting them were all of a sudden, let's band together to get these fires out. No, there's none of that. There is horrible violence and carnage. And as the custodians of the land no longer maintaining it, it's going to just burn. Continue to move along. Southern border, I mean, there's already been 15 large fires or so, and I mean large fires this way. It's 4 kilometers, let's say 8 miles all the way from here, of fires. You're gonna there's no fire line to put down when there's an active fire that's already there. You're not moving this mountain. You have slopes all over the place, which fire will always take advantage of the slope, either racing up or racing down, use the momentum to curve in and out, especially of river systems, ravines, ditches, hills, anything really that is a slope. Fire takes advantage of it and races across it and out. Central African Republic's massive, but these fires are too. Over here, across, these fires crack across the border. Not that Central African Republic isn't seeing fires that are of their own, but they shouldn't have to worry about fires that are encroaching across their border. And again, it's due to a civil war, armed internal conflict in South Sudan appears to be at fault, I would say, for all of these fires not occurring. I'm not saying that the military fighting, this is a consequence of that, but it doesn't help to have all this shelling and hot bullets flying and resting on plants that have had enough smoke to cause them to be dried out might combust. A lot of combustive elements that happen. I don't know where the active war zones would be besides what they are on the news. And but these fires are everywhere. They're not just Rumbeck, Bio, or Malico. That's, yeah. Whoa. This is what I mean. I get too distracted and I get turned around. Gotta go back down here. Southern area. Oh my god. Of South Sudan. What is over the border here? More fires. So yeah, it appears that there has been a lot more fires lately in South Sudan, spreading over Darfur. Come back down. Too much. Yeah. We were right here, and we were trying to keep it to South Sudan. If I cross the border into another country, that should be another stream. Especially when there are more than just a few large fires that are burning. I know South Africa, they've been having firefighting with military aircraft and helicopters, water bombs. But I can't imagine that happening here. So these fires go unchecked. They do not get fought. And the entire countryside is suffering. This isn't just a few wildfires along the countryside. This is 2/4 of your countryside that is burning. Even if it isn't mass plant extinction, you're still losing an upsetting amount of biodiversity in a very short period of time, which would be shocking to any wildland. It's an unhealthy shock to a fragile ecosystem. Fragile because every ecosystem, nothing thrives under smoke, and everything runs from fire. So what's left? The land that can be used for cheap beef or avocados. These fires aren't a joke. This is serious. As we start to look more into Africa, we start seeing Russia's influence more and more, especially with South Africa's meeting with that bald bastard earlier. As Putin is probably dead, and there's numerous amount of people that look like him, who knows? Because the weirdest, craziest things that you see on Ukrainian media. Because Russia is insane. Again, we're not trying to get too far off from South Sudan, but I do believe Rapid Support Forces and Russia are a little more interlocked. Well, they are. That's beyond the point. But the main focus is that nobody's fighting these fires and they're burning, and it's a lot of its ecology and its native land that is being lost. And it's not just a few square miles, dozens of square miles, dozens and dozens. These are some of the worst fires I've seen, and these are all happening just within the last 2 or 3 days. I usually cover fires and try to keep up every few days with let's say what's going on in Northern Territory, Australia, West Africa, and more southwestern Brazil, Bolivia area. The three main areas that I've been looking at, and just every few days just keep adding to the knowledge pool. People come back and they see, okay, South Sudan, these fires here, nobody's fighting them. They're irregularly shaped. There's no smoke from being extinguished. I mean, there is dozens of factors that you could see on satellite if they were being fought back, if there were lines being drawn. But there's none of that. They're just large, irregular, wild fires that are burning out of control, that could merge to burn other fire, to burn other fuel as flames get hotter. The ambient temperature in the firestorm, let's say in the core of the storm, can be over 700 degrees Fahrenheit pretty easily. And you have a lot that wilts and dies just in that extreme heat alone. It's not that the flames catch the animal or ignite the tree, it is that the air around that tree or that lizard is 700 degrees Fahrenheit. There's no surviving it. You can't just withstand 700 degrees Fahrenheit. It boils everything alive. And that's the kind of fate that we're seeing here. A lot of wildlife that goes completely out of the question whenever it's, aside from Australia media, I really don't see the effects of what happens to, and again, it's just mainly like Kenya and other news stations that I follow, but it's not terrible. You can imagine the kind of biodiversity that's lost in a country that's as rich as South Sudan. These fires. Let's take a look at the wildlife. The wildlife of South Sudan refers to the natural flora and fauna of South Sudan. South Sudan includes the Sudd, one of the world's largest wetlands. So S-U-D-D, Sudd. Here it is. The world's largest wetland, Sudd, South Sudan. It is massive, and these fires are encroaching into the world's largest wetland. There's fire already in it. Let's go back. Let's go back again. I'm on the eastern side. I'm all turned around. So that is the world's largest wetland, South Sudan. South Sudan could present the biggest migration of large mammals on Earth. Low density human population with approximately 7 million people spread over, so it's, here's a better map. So here's the Sudd here. What we're looking at here, I'll pull this up here. We're looking in Boro right now. We keep continuing going east to along the southern border to southern. We start getting to Bengage. And there are fires. I had this area circled earlier, north of Sudd, which is the world's largest wetland, and down here by Juba. These all have fire that we've looked at. Green, dark green is national park, light blue is natural reserve, and the kind of the yellow is protected habitat, which is the Sudd. Low population, civil war, armed internal conflict. No one's fighting these fires. These areas become lost. What the hell are we even fighting for? What are they even fighting for? If everything is lost in the meanwhile. We're seeing it too frequently. They want to fight over the land. They want to fight over rules and regulations and politics. But there is no getting this back if it's lost. It is critical habitats for millions and billions of animals that we depend on as a species. These systems and cycles can't be interrupted without side effects. One of the biggest side effects to losing a lot of nature is the rain. The climate used to be able to handle the rains, but if you remove, 10,000 hectares of woods, the rains that used to come and drown those areas and the trees would drink it up, no longer there, and you'll start seeing a lot of crazy floods. Seeing a lot of that right now in Queensland, Australia. You've seen a lot of burn scar action, you see a lot of already saturated moist soil, and that wildfire, these fires, brush fires, bush fires, burn the moisture and water out of these areas, out of the water table, out of river systems. They create little blocked up dams of ash and soot that impede the flow of water, which is unhealthy for a river. That's why dams are being removed around the country as we speak. A lot of progress has been made on removing dams, especially as the salmon population starts to get pretty dark. But again, wildland, a lot of protected areas here. At Sudd, the protected habitat. So 15% of the South Sudanese territory is protected. Wild. That is a wild number. The Sudd wetland, which is an important bird life area covering 57,000 square kilometers or 22,000 square miles. Site with over 400 bird species, 100 mammal species, and 100 fish species. Many of the protected areas are exploited for illegal hunting and rearing of livestock. Yep. They're on the floodplains of the Nile River as well. Some of the other areas, so Boma National Park, that's what we were just looking at. The game reserves, but these game reserves we're talking about one of their largest game reserves being at 10 square kilometers or 3.9 square miles. The entirety of Sudd wetland is 57,000 square kilometers or 22,000 square miles. We can't let fire get to that point. But all we can do is watch. Bush meat cheaper than beef? No, God no. Don't like to hear that. Whatever's in the bush, that's meat. You can see here. Right here. The world's largest wetland. I'm gonna add that to my video. hope this typing isn't coming up too bad. I try to have the microphone a little further away from my keys, but I type like gunfire. Over 150 words per minute to sometimes 200 words per minute. Bragging, I'm just trying to explain the noise. There. South Sudan is home to the world's largest wetland. Now, we continue. We'll just look at just the amount of land that is currently being engulfed. And after we just read that 15% of South Sudan is protected areas, there's a lot of national parks and forests that are currently on fire, as well as threatening the world's largest wetland, Sudd, the Sudd. With the low population of South Sudan, that means that the amount of people that fled is so great that there's no one left. Anybody that's left is either fighting or trying to hide. We can't manage human-caused conflicts, wildlife conflicts, because wildlife conflict will always lose, even if it was never a fight to begin with, because we threw a whole bunch of PFAS in a dam decades ago and gets everywhere, gets in the fish. But fire is different. Spreading fire as an act of terror, act of war, inhuman. This is poised to be a great, a harrowing ecological failure of humanity. I don't want to say just South Sudan, because South Sudan are the caretakers of this land, but now that they're locked in a civil war, there's no one fighting except just making more fire and violence. It's tragic for the people of Africa. It's for people that have their livelihood and these game reserves that take care of this land, that had to flee due to South Sudan and Rapid forces fighting. We're seeing hundreds of fires, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. See this here? This is 24th, the date's on the top right of the screen. Pristine land, just encapsulated by fire. We continue on to the southern border. This is where we were left at. And we can see the fire is starting all along the border of Central African Republic and South Sudan. These are not little blazes, but would take a lot of manpower to handle, to put down. But these fires are racing, 2 to 3, 4 or 4 kilometers in a day. Not fighting that. That fire is running amok. Okay, so let's see here. So far we've looked and we left off right here. Still It's massive. Most 15% of the country is under protected status, home to the world's largest wetland. Look at these flames. Flame is huge. Pretty massive fire. Again, 11/24/2023, there is no fire to be seen, as we've been looking at along the southern border. That there appears to be no fire out this far in the country for the 24th. That's what we can ascertain. Fires here. That's just in a couple of days. This huge fire growth potential even more now, as we can see that this fire here growing about 3 kilometers southwest. These flames, they burn straight and then out. Not seeing any evidence of fire before the last 2 weeks. Last week, really. Because this is 14th here, and that's above in the top center, which results in further wildland fires that just continue on forward. Come back to the very western southern tip. And let's do the northern border up here, south to Colma. There are some massive fires up here. The southern border is just starting to get these fires, but this is push play. These fires are a nightmare. We're losing so much biodiversity, so much of the ecology, and it's gone. This fire just rips it out. Talking about large mammals, we're talking about giraffe, talking about elephants, rhino. We're the big five. A lot of species of birds as well. Birds can fall prey to the fire as well. They can't just fly over it. That they live in the forest. They live in the area. They're not just going to leave in the first sight of heat. They're gonna watch the fire and study it. This amount of fire and heat, you're going to see tree canopies burning on blaze. It's huge. Well, there is at least, yeah, I can go back a little bit further to the 12th of November. Okay, a little bit further back to the 12th. A little bit further back to the 2nd. Okay, here we go. No fire in the area, in the northern area of northwestern South Sudan. And this is this fire journey. It's huge. No recovery from fire, it's lost. You're gonna get some animals that love to roll around in the dust. They don't need it. It just doubles in size. These, the hell. Let's come back up a little bit more. Try to get this whole area. A little bit more to get these out. Get rid of the partials. Really haven't seen fire like this. All these rivers and channels are the dry riverbeds over here, and hills, ditches are all ablaze. That's because when you have wildfire that's coming down, let's say a slope here, it hits this center mark, even if there isn't anything to burn. Let's say this wind here is blowing it south towards the fire. Well, it gets over that slope and it's going to be feeling air that's blowing clockwise or counterclockwise, that's causing fire to come back up. You start seeing that a lot. And then you start getting these symbol burn marks like this that just continue eating away. We've just seen this in such a succession that I don't believe that anybody is able to fight these fires. It would take many brigades. It would take an army to get this done. An army with access to helicopters that drop water. Because this is too much. There's no separation of man wildlife. We need to be the master of it. That doesn't mean we should just watch it burn to hell. But it's all we can do is watch. When you have people that are insane running your country, running your military, running opposition, and worry about wildfires at a time like this. This is insane. This is the most fire growth I think I've seen anywhere so far. It goes from 0 to 100 pretty quickly. All these darkened areas, this is all burned land. This is all scorched earth. The darker, the hotter it burned. And then you can still see, even in areas like this, where the fire is beating other fires to join up to make mega fires. And those fires, the ambient heat and temperature that radiates from these fires will cause trees to burn from a distance. Not explode, not combust, but just catch on fire just from being too close to an open flame. It just keeps this cycle going. I'm wondering if people are cut off from evacuating due to these fires as well. There are people on foot, and there are over 1.5 million people that are displaced. Where are they going, and where are they safe from fire? It's everywhere. There isn't anywhere that I can find that hasn't been affected by wildfire in almost the entire western side of South Sudan. 15% of South Sudan is protected nature reserve, wildlife, and the world's largest wetland. We reach this northern tip up here, this border. Take a look at this time lapse, because it's looking just worse and worse. Anybody my generation or younger, or probably a couple generations older than me, when you see this kind of civil conflict unfold, and you see the dire effects are that most of the countryside is going to be lost due to fire, and it's the world's largest wetland. What are we even doing anymore? There's no contact, there's no way to fix this. All we can do is watch, yet again. All we can do is watch. All we can do is watch and see the world's largest wetland get turned out by fire, dried out, because as we constantly keep saying, fire drives away moisture and water, and the wetland is all that. Can't lose such an important ecology as a wetland anywhere. They don't just spring up, and then you're going to have to worry about where that water is going to go as you're going to start seeing 6 months of rainfall in just a few short days. Yeah, because you're living in an ancient riverbed that used to be able to take that kind of rain. Not flooding because God hates you. God hates us. He must hate us. Look what we've done. We've done. Right, no, that's not us over there, yeah. Give it time. This is going to matter to everyone. When smoke from mega fires from these South Sudanese wildfires start harming other countries. Ethiopia and Tigray war spills over again with this civil conflict, and it's a lot of snap. There's no more civil service. This only military service is what's allowed now because we're in a civil conflict. And the military would be one of the methods of helping put out fires with their equipment. And we're just seeing huge amounts of pristine land just become eradicated. One of the there's what's left. Huge. It's just huge gains. The smoke check. Smoke, alright. The hot fire burning. Let's take a look at the time lapse. These fires, they might burn out, but they're not being put out. They're not being put down. Either, I mean, the fire can hide under a slope, or over a slope, beyond a slope even. A lot of extensions of the wetland here. This is all succumbing to fire. 15% of this environment is protected. It's the government that is protecting it is under martial law, under civil war. No one's fighting these fires. This is all going to be lost. You can't count on the fires putting out themselves. It's very rich with fuel that the fire will continue to utilize as it burns around the countryside. And at the more very fragile ecosystems like the world's largest wetland, South Sudan. Massive fire increase, and it's a really intense increase in fire behavior over just the last few days. Because some of these areas that we're looking at since November, we're not seeing any fire, really just a few short blazes until we get up into this week. It's just every frame that we show at a certain elevation or resolution is going to show some really distinct fires. But they're all irregularly shaped, the smoke is all over the place. There is no evidence from satellite that these fires are at all being fought. There would be some clear distinction, a line being drawn somewhere, literally. And with the military being involved in the Civil War, they can't use their helicopters and aircraft. So these fires, it's going to be this bad or worse. This conflict isn't ending anytime soon. And even if it did, society has to rebuild itself from the Civil War. And that is currently what we're seeing in South Sudan. It's just people murdering each other. Don't know where it could possibly end. But if the civilians that are evacuating are just around the countryside while they bide their time and wait for the war to end, they have fire encroaching on their places now. Where are they going to evacuate to next? These are some of these. Yep, that's a wildfire right here next to the world's largest wetland. This fire is not stopping. This isn't. This is going to be going. Who do I tell? Who can I tell? Does it matter? Does it matter? The world's largest wetland is about to burn. There's fire right on the door, right on the steps of this wetland. It's already there. Fire's already there in the wetland. We just can't see it yet. That's distinct fire markings inside of wetland. This is harrowing. Some real unbelievable sights. Untold amounts of damage to their ecosystem, and their 15% of South Sudan being national parks, reserves, protected areas, protected wetland that is on fire. This is all on fire. We lose another wetland, what's left? Can't be the only one looking at this. I'm not seeing anything about it because obviously the country is being swept up in a civil war. Very bloody, a lot of carnage. But these fires can come back to the people that are fighting, come back to the cities that people are waiting. You can't do anything. This is all within the last week. There's an eruption of fire all across the countryside. Massive amounts of new fires here. Dozens of new fires burning in a wetland. We go up here, South Kordofan. The fires originate from here and migrate south, and they're all over the place. Fires are massive, and they're all recent and still burning. Okay. I don't want to cross over into another country right now. I want to stay in South Sudan. That's a huge fire right there. Starts about a month ago. Huge. Alright. I think we've looked plenty at the countryside. Looking across on the Blue Nile right now. This is the Blue Nile. And it's on fire. On fire, it's on fire, it's on fire. Everything in South Sudan's on fire or about to be on fire, and it doesn't look like there's going to be anyone to stop it. Thank you. On that, I bid you good night. Good day. Stay safe. I will see you again soon.